Just because you have an understanding of the Bible in your head doesn't necessarily mean that you have Jesus in your heart.
Get right, get inside, get hungry, got appetite. Everlasting water, never get thirsty. To disputed lands, take a journey.
You are listening to Chad SCHAFER on Disputed Lands.
Hey everybody, guess what? What I say every Monday. It's Monday night. That means it's time for, once again, Disputed Lands. And guess what? You already know. You can see I got, finally, after long prayer and tries, I finally got my other co-host, fill-in host in the future, Darren Geisinger. You guys already know who Darren is. He's the author of Zero G's. You know, he's right. I mean, you guys know who he is. If you don't, let me know. Raise your hand, and I'm going to come over and smack you around a little bit. His website's on here in case you forgot it. His website is now scrolling across the bottom. Darren, welcome to Disputed Lands as co-host, brother.
Thanks for having me. And as we were talking just before we got on the air, yeah, fiber internet seemed an impossibility where I live, and it took a while, but it's a miracle. We're lucky to have it, and I'm blessed to be on the show as your co-host. Honored. So, yeah, on Disputed Lands tonight. I'm excited to be here.
I am thrilled too. Darren, we got a first-time guest who's waiting in the wings here on our show. His name is Andrew Michael Denny. A lot of you guys will recognize him that are watching this in the live chat there. Somebody type something so I know you're with us and live over there. I see a few comments, but not many commentators any day. But anyway, been waiting for you to get you on here. Andrew Michael Denny has been in our chat. Thanks, Kevin. Before he's here, a regular listener to the show, so he's also a friend. But he has written a book, and it's called "Crushing Conceptualism in Modern Christianity." It's quite the mouthful, but without further ado, and so we can discuss it with him in person, I'm going to bring him into the studio now. Andy, Art Builders, welcome to Disputed Lands, brother.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for having me tonight.
Hey, it's been a long time coming. I can't remember how long ago it was that you got me your book, but it's probably been a good 6 months or so ago that, you know, that we exchanged books. And why I will confess that I didn't read through the whole thing, but I did pick some stuff out of there through the different chapters that I've read. And but before we get into the book, Andy, I want to, and he does go. I asked him before the show, guys, so. Don't get on me for calling him Andy when his name's Andrew. I asked. He prefers to be Andy or Drew. So you guys out there in the live need to be nice. It's Andy or Drew, and unless you're Andy's mom, if you're Andy's mom in the chat, I guess it's all right if you call him Andrew. But you're the only one, Mom, if you're watching. But Andy. Background, brother. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the church? What's your story, brother?
Well, I was not too far from you because I know you're from north of where I grew up. I was in Newcastle and kind of the surrounding rural areas. I was raised in a non-denominational church. You might know of Foursquare Church. I don't know if that's around you anywhere, but I'm familiar with it. Okay. So I had a good, solid Christian upbringing, and it was a great church. I learned about God and Jesus. You know, I learned the gospel from a perspective that, you know, a lot of people can't say that they were raised in the type of home that I was raised in. But my parents were very sincere Christians. They taught me to pray. They taught me who God was, and I'm thankful for that upbringing.
That's awesome. Now, so you were born and raised in the church. This is, as your brief bio here in the description below there on YouTube. If you guys scroll down below the live video here, you can see a little bit of his testimony here. But you're a lot like myself in that regard, even though you're raised in a non-denominational church, but a Foursquare church still is, it's still a denominational church. I think if you start thinking about the type of things that we discuss here on Disputed Lands, or if you get into the topics that Darren has written about and has been involved with himself for these years, these are what Darren, right? We would call these fringe topics. You see how I timed that while Darren was taking a drink?
That's perfect. Well, it kept my mouth shut for a second longer. Yeah. So the fringe, the outer fringe of the truther community. Yeah. Topics. So, I mean, that's what Disputed Lands is about. So, diving into the hard subjects. Yeah.
So, Andy, that's the question then for you. When did you first become aware of topics, I guess, in your upbringing outside of the standard, or I'll do it right here. My hands are too far out on this screen. Maybe if I changed it up here a little bit. Let's do this. Nope, not that one. This one. Hey, there we go.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we'll do this for you. You can see more of us here. But air quotes, normal Christian theological circles. When did you first discover Christian topics outside of the standard? How long ago, Andy?
It was probably in 2012, maybe. I picked up a book called Pagan Christianity by Frank Viola.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he really, and this is a Christian guy. He's not someone bashing the way that modern churches do things, but he definitely exposes a lot of the paganism involved in a lot of where we've adopted a lot of our practices. So that was really eye-opening for me.
So I was aware of the book. I'm aware of Frank Viola, but did he cover topics in there like Easter or Christmas or any of those things? Or
yeah, right. Yeah. What topics were the ones that jumped out at you first?
To be honest, it was more about like he goes over everything, including the buildings, the church buildings, the structure of the church, and where we get like, the hierarchy and everything like that. But I think more than anything, it was when you start getting into tithing and pastorship, things like that.
Oh, so he went after the real root of a lot of these things. Man, I bet he didn't win a lot of friends for that.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure he got a lot of enemies, but no, he's actually he's woken up a lot of people from what I can tell, and he has, I don't want to say a following. I don't like that word following, but he's gotten a lot of people to start their own what he calls organic churches, in their homes and things like that, rather than these structural churches that you find on the corner of every city block.
Right. So, okay. So that's still, even doing that is still, I don't know, Darren, when you say it's still quite a ways away from what you would call fringe Christian topics. I mean, that's a good start. I mean, I guess it's in the right direction. But
yeah, I have to take myself a ways back from the getting out of the church and getting away from churchianity. It's hard for me to even put myself back in the mega church. It's been a while now, but I mean, people are waking up all the time. So just because that topic might not be fringe, it might be the first step that some folks listening out there need to take.
Right. Let me put it this way. I guess that was the first book, or that was the first piece of information that just really kind of scared me. You know what I mean? And it makes you look at the way you're doing things. It's the one book that made me start to change the way I think and consider new information. So
that's a beautiful way to put it. So in your consideration of new information, what new information did you run across next that led you to crazy folks like myself and Darren?
So in 2017, it was, I believe, February or March. I came across a video, and you've probably heard this from several people, but it was Rob Kiba. And he was doing a seminar in Amsterdam, and I couldn't believe some of the things that were coming out of his mouth, but the way he explained it, it made sense, and it caused me to reconsider everything that I was ever taught from the textbooks in school. So,
Rob is kind of a red pill. Sure.
Yeah. So that was my red pill moment.
So you got onto that.
Yeah. So well, if that was do you remember some of the Rob topics that shocked you? Like, throw out one or two that you remember him saying and it really setting you back. Like, just give us a couple.
Well, there was so much packed into that conference that, of course, when he was talking about the shape of the earth, I'm like, man, what is this guy talking about? But then, like, he went into the tabernacle with it, and that's when he made that comparison about how Andrew Hoy sent him his material. So I have these things coming at me left and right, and then after I listened to that, I decided to get online and look at his books, and he has books on the Nephilim and the government and how the occult's in the government. So it's just, I'm drowning in all this new scary information, but I have such a curiosity that I wanted to keep looking into it. And over the next couple of years, beginning in March of 2017, I just digested as much as I could, tried to understand it, and kind of slowly realized there is a world agenda of, I mean, when the Bible talks about spiritual wickedness in high places, I'm like, oh gosh, I get it now. Like, this makes sense. The Bible's coming alive, you know?
Did you immediately have more? Did you notice that you had a hunger for the scriptures then as you after that you maybe not had before? I'm not saying that you had, but I can tell you from my personal experience, when I ran across the information that I did, it was like sitting down at a banquet table that I had been looking for a long, long time and didn't even know I was looking for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I read the scriptures as much as I could, but around this time, it was like I found myself more diving into certain areas, intentionally looking for what the scripture said on certain subjects. So it was more topical studies from then on out, and which can be good. It can kind of lead you away from your just consistent pattern of just reading and absorbing the scripture when you're approaching it that way. But I think there's a time for that. There's a time when you need to look at the scriptures different ways.
All right. No, I understand. So your book then, which is what we're getting to, is called Crushing Conceptualism in Modern Christianity. So, hey, Nate Dogg, good to see you here, brother. Thank you for being here. Ren, Kevin, everybody. Karen, I see you there. Jesse, sweet Jesse, love her. So, Crushing Conceptualism in Modern Christianity, that's quite, CC, yeah, it's kind of a mouthful. So why did you come up with this title, Crushing Conceptualism? I mean, this obviously has to have something personally involved for you with that kind of a title. What made you decide on that for a title of your book?
When I was swallowing these red pills, it just made me realize how much of a conceptual view people have of the faith, the Christian faith. And
hey, can I read the first full sentence there for the folks that may not have this up right now? Can I just read that?
Yeah, go right ahead. Go for it.
Several words could be used to describe mainstream Christianity today: religious, traditional, organizational, dogmatic, ritualistic, formalized, commercialized, televised, modernized, corporate, institutionalized, imperialized, Americanized, etc. In other words, the mainstream churches today have become secularized. We'll just drop that right there. Okay. So yeah, I thought that was worth reading.
You're right.
Thank you. Yeah. And
do you talk about fog machines in there? smoke and fog machines, right?
Oddly enough, I get to the commercial setting and how we've basically made it into an entertainment venue in some in some places. So there are sections in chapter 10 where I talk about that.
Some. I saw a meme on Facebook. It was funny. The family was sitting at home because they couldn't go to church because of the virus. And the church was good enough to send every family home their own smoke fog machine so they could do worship at home.
Right.
That's awesome. So, but you in your book, you're laid out. You have let's see here, how many chapters you have total? You have 11 chapters, and as I looked through them, it does seem like this book, for those who may be interested in it, is just really kind of an overlay of just what that title says. I mean, it is a mouthful of a title, like I'm one to talk, the world in the bondage of Egypt under the triumphal arch of Titus. I mean, I'm not really one to talk with with a mouthful of a title of the book, but it does really do that. So I'm just going to, Andrew, I'm going to just read through the chapter headings, and maybe you can talk a little bit about each one of these. I'm not quite sure that we'll get through all of it, but you talk about the lost files, where you talk about the apocryphal books. Mm-hmm. You have one here called Radical Mythology. The next one, From Mythology to Theology, Spiritual Wickedness in High Places. And for you F-eaters out there, Biblical Cosmology, Plain Physics, Tactical Distraction, which is, I love that chapter title alone got my attention, by the way, Andy. Contending Against Design, Conceptual Christianity, and Finalizing the Framework in the Face of Scrutiny, and then, of course, all the appendixes. But it's really just kind of an overlay, I guess, Andy, in my words, if I were going to describe it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, this really just takes a snippet of maybe topics that you've ran across in the past 3 or 4 years that really have impacted you in a way that is different from what your normal Christianity topics would discuss. Is that fair to say, or no?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of the summary or the overview of, and what I'm basically doing is taking a lot of these topics that we all know about, that we hear, and that a lot of the conferences that you go to and speak at, and I'm just kind of putting them in one. It's basically a truth journal that I wrote while I was coming into the knowledge of everything.
Well, that kind of answers that the question. Then I was going to ask you that question, and I kind of skipped over it. But what prompted you to write this book? I mean, what was the impetus or the burden for you in getting this written?
I'd have to say it was the unction of the Holy Ghost. I just felt burdened. I don't know, it's just almost even a physical feeling, just in your chest when you have to. When you have to have an assignment, when, I just felt like the Lord gave me this assignment and I just had to share with other people. When I was in the denominational church, I was told that I had a gift of teaching and writing. I needed to just keep writing. The churches that I was a part of, they used my Bible studies that I wrote. They would even use them in the prison ministries and things like that, and discipleship courses. So I did feel like I had a gift, but I never felt this type of tug from the Lord like I did it was the fall of 2018. It was August 2018 when I first started writing the book and journaling everything that I was finding.
Is one of your goals, I mean, I'm bottom lining it here, so this might be too harsh, but is it one of your goals is it to shake up and change the organized church, or to get people out of it and into home churches and more awake and do away with the big mortgages and the building funds and some of that structure?
Well, I mean, that would be nice, but I can't say that that's my vision. I think that's something more probably that Frank Viola had in mind, that he would like to see everyone wake up in that regard. But with the way things are going, I think people are headed that way anyway. People are going to find out that they were relying on a building and this structure, and that basically defines church for them. And so that's not really the reason I wrote this. Was more to wake people up that I knew personally, family and friends. Unfortunately, some of the people that I did want to wake up that were a part of the church that I had attended for so many years, a lot of the people we want to reach are the people that don't want to hear it. So, so I'm kind of at a place where I have some really good material that I think, some information that I think people need to hear. And for the people that I'm becoming connected with, it's like a lot of you guys already know a lot of this stuff. But then the people that I want to reach don't want to hear it. So it's kind of...
Well, I've heard it said that the greatest target or area of evangelism today is the church now. I mean, essentially, the people that are going to the mega churches and going through the motions and will eventually get away from me, I never knew you, are the ones that, need to read books like that.
So that brings up a good question. I think you kind of answered this partially, but I'm going to dig a little deeper. What was the reaction from, I guess, from immediate family to perhaps extended family, if or when they heard you investigating and talking about some of the things that you were running across starting back there in 2012 through 2017, 18, 19, we started writing. Did you, what were the reactions? I guess first from wife and immediate family to extended, or how much, I don't know how much, I guess, that took place, but I'm just curious to know.
Well, if I go back that far, I don't think I really started to write about truth topics. It wasn't until Crushing Conceptualism. Before that, I still wrote, but it was consistent with what organizations were teaching, and it was according to their, to a doctrinal statement or something that they already have. So I would say in August, when I started writing Crushing Conceptualism, I would post a lot of the things on Facebook that I would write about. And that's when I started seeing a lot of friends disappear. And so, and some of the people who would never comment or like posts, they would start showing up on my posts and commenting, speaking against what I'm talking about, especially when it comes to the cosmology, but I don't know if that kind of answers what you were saying. I'm kind of rambling.
Yeah, I just wanted to, have you immediate family, like maybe your wife or brothers and sisters? I don't know if you have brothers and sisters or immediate family, or how much interaction you have with them. But what I was just more curious as to how they have responded to what you've done or written, or the change, some of the changes maybe in what you think and believe regarding what the scriptures say.
Well, I'm blessed to be married to someone who does listen, and we have grown together in all of this knowledge, and I couldn't ask for someone better. We are in complete agreement about all of the confrontation or the controversial topics that I write about. So with my wife, it's not a problem. And it doesn't even really get awkward with my parents. Some of the topics, I mean, the first time I heard about cosmology, I understand the reaction people are going to have. So, but they're very understanding. They actually, when Nate Wolf came down here to Seymour, they attended the cosmology meetup. So
really,
yeah. So
that's awesome.
It's not something we talk about a lot. I don't know where they stand as far as believing what they believe or what they don't. I mean, I know they have faith in the scriptures.
Sure.
But it's
that's the most important thing. I'm just curious to the reactions, but the fact that they came at all, Andy, I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
it is. And some of the other topics, though, my dad read Babylon Rising, So he does like stuff like that. So, and he's going through my book right now. He's hearing a lot of the same information that he read in Babylon Rising, some of the stuff that from the cosmology meetup. And so at this point, I don't think he's really surprised anymore. I don't know. Maybe he has thoughts that he's not voicing, but that's all right. He's supportive either way. So I love.
Well, what do you, Andy? What do you want to see next happen with the material? Like, if you had your best case scenario, what would happen? What messages back would you start getting from folks? How do you want them to think about the material?
I want it to change people's mind the way my mind was changed when I started reading books like this. I would like for it to get into the hands of people that I don't know, but so that I could hear testimonies of people that I don't know who maybe came to a better understanding. Mostly, I mean, I think we all have the same vision, is that we want others to come to Christ, to a fuller knowledge and a fuller revelation of who he is. So that's ultimately my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did want to point out for folks, this it's not just a rubber stamp of everything that everybody is here. I mean, you do offer some of your thoughts and your thought process and insights into this. And just like everybody that's a guest on here, you know, I'm not 100% on board with everything Andy does, but he is a brother. And what he has written is worth consideration. And the number one thing is he loves Yeshua. He's confessed him as his savior, and we're all on the same team. The other things we can bicker about, I guess, amongst ourselves privately, but there's nothing to be ashamed of or upset here. But, you know, I don't agree 100% with everything, but I can say that 99% of the things that he's written here, of what I've read, I'm 100% on board with him. And I love the way you've done this, Andy. I want to point this out to you. I love the fact that you have taken, you're the first one that comes to mind, actually, when I think about this, someone who has just basically taken a sample of the different topics that could come up. Now, maybe somebody else has, but for me, taking basically a sample of the different topics that somebody could run into and put them together into a book. It's really nice the way that you did that. So I wanted to thank you for doing that right off the bat. I wanted to make sure I remembered to tell you too.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
And it seems, Andy, it seems like you're doing it in quite the gentle way, the way that I hear you speaking about the impact that you wanted to have on folks. I'm more of a bull in a china shop. I'm like, get homeschooling, get out of the cities, and get out of churchianity. Quit playing and get to it. But I'm not always well received with that bent. It sounds like if people want a intellectual approach, a well thought out intellectual, carefully worded, this would be good. So this might be a good gift for someone to get for somebody else that they don't want to be offended. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I worked hard to make sure the approach didn't really offend anybody, but I explained it the way, and I talk about a lot of the psychology that, you know, from personal experience, what I was going through and coming to these different revelations, I guess. So it really helps the individual see inside themselves, and I didn't really think about it that way, but one of the first people who read my book from front to back was D.R. Lee. I know you know him. And so I listened to a lot of what he had to say, and he's put out some videos about it. But after he was talking about the psychology and how it gets you inside, it gets the reader inside of, it kind of helps you see inside of yourself. That made me feel real good. And I didn't see it that way at first, but now that I look back, it does talk about a lot of the psychological, the processing and the cognitive dissonance, and overcoming that to actually consider. So if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense to me, actually. So when when you wrote about the this is 6 and 7, when you talk about biblical cosmology and plain physics, which I want to again confess, I didn't read all of your book. I've read a little bit of everything that was in there. It's right now your book. I would show you guys the book. You can see the picture. It just follows some of the links. Look, folks, I don't have any bookshelves up yet. I'm in Egypt. I've got pyramids, and behind the pyramids are boxes.
There we go. There we go. Right.
Behind the pyramids you see there are boxes. So if you go to Egypt and you go to the other side of the pyramids, all you're going to see are boxes stacked. And in there is Andy's book.
That's right, because you just had a move not that long ago. Right.
Yeah, I just had a move that long ago. Pyramids take you a long time to walk around. Don't get me started.
Well, Andy just raised up his book there. Do we have his website that scrolls for people where they can go get this book?
Yeah, it's in the link below. You can actually just click on the link below the YouTube video there. If you click on show more, you can actually see a link there to his stuff and find his book. I'm sure if you just type in the title of the book on Amazon, you'll find it.
That's probably the most practical place to get it.
There you go. There you go. Practical place to get it is on Amazon. But I said all of that and got all that around to say I did not read the chapters on biblical cosmology and plain physics. So briefly, as you could, tell me what you write about in here in those 2 chapters.
Well, the difference is looking at the creation from a biblical perspective, and it emphasizes the firmament and everything like that. That's chapter 6 is a biblical cosmology, and then chapter 7 is more about the science and why it makes sense. So one's kind of a secular chapter, and one's from a biblical perspective. Okay. Although I do put plenty of scripture in the scientific chapter. So
okay. Well, yeah, thank you. Because like I said, I didn't read anything from those 2 chapters, and I was just curious exactly what you had written about in them. But I had mentioned one particular chapter title that had jumped out at me, and I'm going to ask you about this: tactical distraction. Dude, if there is a chapter title that hits a ballpark for grab your attention, at least for me, this one did it. Tactical distraction. How did you come up with that? Number one, just an inspiration. And then number 2, the question, I want to dive into this chapter a little bit deeper. How did you come up with the title? And then what is in this chapter of the book?
I wanted to make sure that people know that this elite force is wanting to distract us while they are ready to attack. They want to keep us busy so that we're distracted, kind of watch what the right hand's doing while the left hand makes the move type of thing. And it's actually a precursor to chapter 9, which starts talking about weaponization and stuff. So that was kind of the thinking behind it. And I talk about, no, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the first 2 subtopics within the chapter of tactical distraction you have listed here is district and fact check. What are those about?
Okay, that's so I open up the chapter talking about programming people and like psychological conditioning and how they use movies and different things like that to kind of numb us to accept a lot of the things that are about to happen, such as 9/11 and things like that. You know, you've seen a lot of the stuff about the Simpsons and all that, you know, all that type of thing. But district is actually a section where I do talk about 9/11, and the reason I named it district was because back in 2000, it was about 2001, before the towers. I was listening to a secular band called Sick of It All, and I was watching a music video, and all of a sudden I saw the towers crumbling down. And at the time I didn't think anything of it until I watched that music video later, after the towers fell. And then like I didn't realize that video was made before the 9/11 attacks, right? And so that's really the only reason I titled it that, was because the name of that song was District, and I went into that album by that band. But that chapter kind of shares a few nuggets here and there about 9/11, the Titanic, just different things that I was coming across over the past few years. But I focus more on how the media is distracting us and how it's staged and scripted. And I don't know if you've seen that video where it shows all the anchors on the page, all of them doing this same script. I lay out that excerpt for people to see, and then I think I offer a link to that so they can see. And there's also Amber Lyons, maybe. There was a CNN reporter who kind of came out and left CNN because they were making her report false information, and everything was different than what she was finding on her own. So I talk about that a lot. Then I go into how sports are one of the methods that they use, how Hollywood is one of the methods that they use, and the music industry and different things like that. So there's a lot in there, a lot of different topics. I think my favorite part of that chapter was talking about the music industry and the occult, and because this is one of those topics that I was actually looking into a long time ago, probably about 10 years ago, but I just didn't really make the connection. But that's probably my favorite one because I am a musician, and so just realizing that everything that I was a part of growing up, that it could be used to keep me numb to what's really happening around me.
Interesting. Before I go on to another question, Darren, do you have anything you wanted to ask him about in regards to that?
Well, yes. I mean, tactical distraction. Yes. I mean, it's to me, it's incredibly obvious what they're doing to roll in the one world order, the new world order, and the coming mark of the beast. So sometimes it's hard for me to have some patience for people who don't see how obvious, this whole, I don't even know if we can say the word virus on here without them taking it down. So I just did. But, to me, this will be a 9/11 event. It's going to stick in everybody's minds. And, but the main goal of it is to pass a lot of laws, to, get them ready for, mandatory vaccines. If that's not coming with this one already, you can't go to the big box store unless you have your vaccination bracelet. But they're just not going to roll those things out and say, hey, we've decided this is a good idea. No, they're going to manufacture, the largest false flag event in the history of this world, to make sure no one disputes what they're about to pass and put into place. So I don't know if Andy wants to talk about anything like that. I don't want to get videos taken down, but what we're in the midst of now is a big look over here while, and the president himself said in one of his first press conferences, but there was a lot of old rules. I heard him say old rules 3 times, I believe, in one of those first press conferences. That was made for a different era, nothing like this. So we're going to update our rules. Anyway, you could get me started on that. But people need to see what's happening and don't be fooled.
I don't want to talk about it because I don't know what's going on. I've had to shift my theology so much about the end times, and and I keep hearing so many different theories about what's going on that I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I have some ideas of what I think they're doing, but then I'll hear something the next day that makes me think what I thought the day before was kind of off, And I think that's of the devil, I mean, he wants us to be confused. But right now, I feel like I've just been absorbing and listening to a lot of your shows and a lot of what I'm seeing on Take on the World. And I've just been enjoying listening to you guys talk about this more. And so I don't really have any conclusions right now. I know the one world formation is happening. They're setting the stage. I do believe that. I was one of those people who was on the Trump train for a while, because you kept hearing the people talking about Osiris and all that stuff. So a few years back, I was kind of on the same page, thinking that Trump is going to he's going to help us with Israel, sign that peace treaty, and then Syria and all this stuff's going to go on, and then Syria and then Israel's going to make peace, and then that's going to be the beginning of the 7 years and all this stuff. But I've had to totally erase everything that I thought was going to happen a few years ago, and kind of play it by ear, to be honest. Because
Andy, I can tell you, just having conversation here about that, is that with my research and study, I can tell you very confidently that we're going to see the world leaders act and react very similar to the way Pharaoh did. It's not going to fall out of line much different than what the scriptures tell us and how Pharaoh reacted during the time of plagues and things of that nature. So, what was the deal there at the last plague? Well, if you remember, what kicked this all off before even the first plague had fell is that Yahweh had told Moses to go make request of, to come celebrate a feast day. He wanted to take all the peoples out and have a feast day. Now, the kind of the understanding here is Pharaoh understood that the tribes of Israel, they were pretty much the rock solid foundation of all the blessings that, that Egypt was receiving at the time. They were the hard workers, the income bread makers, they were a solid part. And so there was a lot of fear that struck Pharaoh's heart to think that so many people might go together outside of the country or outside of their borders or even away from their structure. It really struck fear into Pharaoh. So I think if we translate that into our modern times, just using the West for example, I don't think that you would find much difference in the reaction, because the truth is those at the top, and they know it, truly are in a minority. Even today, they're in I think we'd be surprised or shocked to find just out about how minority they truly are in regards to the total population within even the United States, percentage-wise. And they understand that if faithful believers, even lackluster believers, decide that they're going to act on their faith, specifically regarding the Lord's commands, that scares them to all get out, right? That scares them, because they know, the ones at the top do, they know that if a people follows Yahweh and his commands and even gets just a taste of obedience to him, that it destroys many, 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 many other plans, because they can't touch us when we're obedient to the Father. So that's number one, what I know, and I keep rock solid in my mind, that following the Father scares them crazy. I mean, it scares them. They don't want it. So number two aspect about that is the reactions to faithful believers and people who are faithful and who know their Father, right? Their reactions are not going to vary, I believe, outside of what we see man reacts and powerful men react the same way Pharaohs and the rulers did then. They're going to react in pretty much the same manner. There's nothing new. So I think it's a good time to be grounded in the scriptures and to see how wicked leaders respond to faithful followers and obedient children of God.
Well, let me read. Hey, Chad, let me read Daniel 11:32. Said, those who do wickedly against the covenant he shall corrupt with flattery, but the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. Yeah, they're afraid of that. They don't want people who know the actual Elohim and can do great exploits against them. So that's why they're boiling the frog in such a way that they don't get mass revolution.
right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think they're more probably the fact that this is coming on the stage now is both a sign that they want to, as we've discussed, further their agenda and their plans because they have a strong desire to do so and to do so quickly. Because we also read Satan knows he has but a short time, right? So he knows he has limited time. But I think, as I said before, the very fact that our Father is waking so many people up to truths that have been buried within the scriptures for so long is a signal and a sign to me. It's because of obedience these things are coming. It's not, it's not a cart before the horse situation. They're not doing it and God's children are reacting. No, I think it's just the opposite. I think it's because there are so many people whom the Father's eyes are being open to the truths within his word that we are seeing these things now start to transpire and take place in the world, right? Because the Father is wanting to wake up his kids. He is waking up his kids. And so he's making it more obvious that there are actually two sides and only two choices to be made in the world, the wickedness and the wicked men and him. So that's the other thing. But like I said, I don't think, and this is just my words, my counsel to people who would watch, is that know the scriptures, read your Bible, see how those wicked leaders responded and why they responded the way they did. And I can pretty much guarantee you it's going to be no different today than it is then. Study and show yourself approved to see how the true faithful followers of Yeshua and the Father prepare themselves, how they carry themselves, how they follow in obedience. Be ready. It's not going to be an easy road for you or your families, for sure. But we can take great joy in knowing that in our obedience, the Father is going to be there with us. And regardless of what the enemy tries to throw at us, man, it ain't going to stick. You see, they got problems. They have real problems messing with my father. They got real problems messing with his kids. And, man, the thought of being on the receiving end of my father's wrath is not something that I would want to face. And, it's going to be exciting to see, the rewards that he hands out to his faithful children. So,
I wanted to ask Andy what he thinks the next step for people out there who have read his book, agree with him, are responding to. What is the next step for people to take? Almost like, what book are you going to write next, or what's next, Andy?
I don't know that there is another project for me. Because I haven't felt that same feeling that I felt 2 years ago when I started writing. What I'm trying to do now, and I'm not as gifted as a lot of the content creators that I love watching, but I have been trying to put different episodes on my channel so that those who don't really feel like reading, I know there's not, reading is something that takes a lot of time. So, but you can listen to a video and work and stuff like that. Like I'm at work and I listen to YouTube. I listen to a lot of different radio shows while I'm at work. So I'm hoping to get every section of this book on an episode on my channel. And the past few weeks I've actually started in chapter 10, talking about the church, tearing that system down, the commercial church. And so I'm hoping to get better at that. I've made a few slideshows about the weaponization and things. I'm just not as gifted and as some of the other people that I like watching. So I don't know. I got 40 subscribers, and I thought, you know what? It doesn't sound like very many, but a lot of the feedback that those people give me, I get private messages, and they tell me that it's really spoken to them. It's changing them. It's moving them. So I think I'm going to keep pursuing that.
Brother, that's all that matters. And so we'll just say that right now. The link to Andy's YouTube channel is in the description below the YouTube. So every one of you there in the chat, do me a favor. If you haven't, bookmark, like, subscribe to this channel, share it on your Facebook and social media things. Let's get some more subscribers over there to Andy. But Andy, I full-heartedly agree, and I've said it many times on Disputed Lands. Brother, it doesn't matter to me if there's 1 or 10,000 people who ever view or read anything that I've done. The only thing that matters to me is being obedient, and that at least one person is blessed by that the Father wanted to reach. And I understand, man, you get 1 or 2 comments. Maybe there are only 40 subscribers, but what joy, man, it is to know that 1 or 2 people were touched, helped, or encouraged, or, maybe some bondage broken about something in their lives, and blessed, just simply blessed by something you had done. So I hear you, man. I really hear you on that.
Absolutely.
You know what? I just noticed the time, Darren.
Time flies when you're having fun, but at least I think we got the nuts and bolts in. We got to have his book, the title, the link of where people get it, and also obviously his YouTube channel, because I think a lot more people are going to start subscribing. I mean, you don't have to be over the top. Don't try to be Alex Jones, Andy. We don't want that anyway. So just do what Andy does, and Father will gather the people around. Because if I remember the Gideon story, he kept weeding it down to less and less folks, if I remember right.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's comforting. So,
before we go off the air here or there, Darren, you and I have talked this about a number of times. I don't think I prompted you ahead of time that I would be asking you this question, but I think you probably have a good idea of what the answer is going to be. So I'll ask it live on air, knowing that you're my friend. And please do not yell after me afterwards. But as far as Darren and Disputed Lands are concerned, what can we expect from Darren on Disputed Lands going forward in the future? Are you going to be having some guests on your own? Or are you going to just pop in from time to time? What are your thoughts on co-hosting and or hosting on Disputed Lands, Darren?
My thoughts are definitely for the month of May. I will not be around Disputed Lands very much. I'm going to have to we won't get into it here and there. But after that, maybe the first week of May, but the last 3 weeks of May, something's going on with me. But after that, let's say June forward, I definitely want to be someone who is there for Chad. If he gets swept up in some controversy, he can't make it, I will pinch hit and come in and help keep your show going. That's my goal. And then, honestly, I'll just help out however Yah calls me to help out. And I know some folks because I do coordinate the True Legends Conference. And if people want to get the live streaming for the True Legends Conference, that's not that far away. That's May 15th and 16th. Excuse me. Go on to gen6.com and sign up for the streaming there. That's coming right up. And so, I get to go over to Derek Gilbert's tomorrow and tape some stuff for that. And I'd love to bring, any of the True Legends personalities on and maybe some that these folks haven't heard of before. But I'll help Disputed Lands and Chad SCHAFER any way I can.
That's awesome. I'm so looking forward to that, brother. I thank you and I appreciate you. I've got to look at and thinking about it. It doesn't seem like we've known each other very, very long, Darren, but it's been at least 3 years now.
Wow. Is it really? That's crazy. Can't be. But again, time does fly. And
it's been flying so quick, man.
Yeah, we were talking about Go ahead.
We got another brother here, and Andrew Michael Denny. Now he's been in our chats, been faithfully there. Brother, you've been so faithful to me to share the Disputed Land show and telling people about it or bringing me up or talking about it. Brother, that means so much to me. And telling you live on air, you've been such a huge support, and I don't take that lightly. I really don't. So thank you for that, for your support. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to share your information and your book here. We do have one final question here before we're going to go off the air. Patricia, I'm not going to call you what you don't like to be called. But Trisha had a question early on here. She says, I didn't know you played a musical instrument. What musical instrument can you play? Andy?
So yeah, when I was growing up, I started with the drums, so I can do percussion. But I moved on to the stringed instruments when I was in my teenage years. So it's just something that I did while I was in the church mostly, and on the platform when they have the music services. But since I developed a passion for writing, it's just kind of been one of those things where it's just kind of slid away. I just don't have the passion that I used to. Hopefully, maybe in the future, it's something I'll look at again. I still play. I kept one of my guitars, so I pick it up every now and then.
Right on. All right. Well, guys, I know it's gone quick and maybe not quite an hour, but it's really, I don't have any more questions that are burdening in my heart. Andy, is there any last final thoughts that you have for us or things that you want to share? If you do, go ahead and share them now. If not, then we're going to see you around and we'll end the show. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of share any final thoughts you may have, or just anything you want to say to the audience.
Just because a few people have asked me what is the deal with the name Ark Builders. And so if you're listening, the reason I chose that as kind of a ministry name, it's just kind of a connection with, it's kind of the role of what I feel is like the modern prophets versus, and I don't even like using that term, but I feel, Jesus said he likened the end times to the days of Noah, and Noah was called to prepare a people. And I just feel like there's a lot of ark builders out there like you and me, people who are just trying to wake people up, get the information out there and to warn people. So I just felt it was an appropriate title to use for a ministry. So, and I know people are going to ask me, so that's why I just wanted to get it out there.
Well, perfect. Thank you for doing that. It makes perfect sense to me, and I love it. As again, chat and everybody out there, I love you guys. Thank you for supporting Disputed Lands and Take on the World TV. So enjoyed seeing you guys again tonight. Darren, it's been great to have you on today as a co-host to give the duck a little bit of a break so he can take care of some things. He's worked so hard to fill in for me while I was preparing the marathon shows.
Right
out there. April, I saw you in the chat earlier. If you're still there and you hear this, you need to message me because if we can, I know you've waited for a long time, sister. You're going to be my guest next week on Disputed Lands. I'm just sharing that ahead of time. If you're hearing this, awesome. Let me know. If you're not out there anymore, the rest of you know that I'm going to be messaging her here real soon. Hopefully we'll get April Ray here on next week to talk about her book. This has been Disputed Lands. It has been another Monday night on Take on the World TV. My co-host, Aaron Gunslinger Geisinger, and our special guest, Andy Michael Denny. We thank you guys for being here with us. We love you so much. And so until we see you again next week, shalom from me and the Disputed Lands crew.
Get right, get inside, get hungry, word of God appetite. Everlasting water, never again thirsty. To Disputed Lands, take a journey. Get right, get inside, get hungry, word of God appetite. Everlasting water, never again thirsty. To Disputed Lands, take a journey. Get right, get inside, get hungry, word of God appetite.